Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. I hope that you're having a great Saturday, and I appreciate you joining in for this segment. Listen, before we get started, a couple shouts out to some people. I want to give a shout out to our frontline workers that are still out there after all these months, after dealing with a year pandemic and coronavirus, who have been pulled back into the office to deal with, of course, people who've been infected by the Delta variant, COVID 19, and as well, and people who are unvaccinated. I'm not going to get into that. I'll talk about it a little bit later. But it brought about this thought process about how we lend ourselves to things, how we lend ourselves to what we believe in, even if what we believe in has been corrupted and compromised by things that are not beneficial to what we believe, or things that are not ethical, or things that are not moral. People who make bad decisions, and count on us to make the right decision, the spiritual decision, the ethical decision, the moral decision, and do the right things around those spaces. One of the things I'm going to talk about today is this whole idea about protect and serve. Anybody who's been here on this earth for the last 100, 200 years has been under auspices of protect and serve. Let me tell you what I mean. When I say protect and serve, it is under the idea that people who are out there to protect us somehow do so with a certain level of mobility, a certain level of deference to the fact that the world is a big place. And to protect and serve means that you have to see people equally and treat them with fairness. We are a year and some into this pandemic. And one of the greatest questions that was ever asked in a rap song was by KRS-One. KRS-One stands for Knowledge Reigns Supreme Over Nearly Everybody. And his quote was it was on a CD cover. I remember I bought it. And he was sitting on a curb and there was a cop standing over him. And the caption goes, "You were sent here to protect us, but who protects us from you?" Today, I really want to talk about that whole concept of who protects us from you. Now, you can put a lot of people in the us category. You can put a lot of people in the you category. I'm going to delineate and say that the decision makers, the lawmakers, the enforcement people, those are the you. Those are our elected officials. Those are our fire marshals. Those are our sheriffs. Those are our police chiefs. Those are our senators. Those are our Congress people, all the way up to the president. Who protects us from you? Because now we have a bit of a situation now. Old folks say if you stand out long enough, a person's true nature will come out, and you will see the adults eat their young. Well, it's something similar to that when a law all of a sudden is disingenuous to one group of people. If you remove those group of people, the people that are left there, they will cannibalize themselves. So what you're seeing now with the whole aspect of people not being vaccinated, or I don't want the vaccination, and and the arguments that go along with it, it speaks to a larger problem, if you will, a deeper conundrum in terms of who protects us from you. This is not one of the things we're going to get super duper deep. I don't have to do super duper deep because I believe that all of you have asked this question at some point in time. Driving or getting pulled over by a police officer, you realize that if that police officer is not in their right state of mind, their guided spirit, that situation can go wrong really, really quickly. Who protects us from you? We have laws that are going out right now about voter registration and things like that. And we know that they said 18 states are working hard to make sure that it's harder to vote in the upcoming elections. 18 states. Why? Why are we doing that? Well, it's not us. You, not the viewer, but someone out there, the yous are doing that. because the masses have not called for those things. So look, we're going to get the show started. I'm going to come back. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get it rolling. Preacher Moss, the Shout Out Show. Welcome back, everybody. Let me go ahead and give my shout outs early on the show today. If you're coming to the show for the first time, thank you for coming and joining us. We hope that we can make this an enlightening and meaningful engagement for you. What you can do is get into the comment section. Let us know what you feel. If you have some ideas you'd like to share with us, please do. Because while I'm the host of the show, I don't own the platform. The community makes the platform. The Shout Out Show community makes the platform, and we have rolling ideas that come around. We go through them throughout the year. We revisit them. This is going to be a revisit. That's why it's called Who Protects Us From You Part 2, because now it's a healthcare component, and I will be going into that as well. Also, click the subscribe button, notification button, like button if you feel like it. If not, it's okay. You are part of the SOS family, and you're going to get your shout out. So without further ado, let me get my shout outs out early today, because I don't want to waste too much time. First of all, we got in the queue today. Our stars in the building. Okay, we got Sister Ree saying hello, family. Hello to you, Sister Ree. Hope all is well. Hope you are feeling better. Inshallah, made dua for you that Allah give you shifa and give you a full and robust healing so you feel better. It's so important that your physical and your mental health are elevated. So we're pulling for you. Take that rest, get that rest, and we're all here for you. Sister Reed, thank you so much. Next up, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh. Brother Altaf Rashid, my main man, Mr. 6 o'clock. Straight up, straight down, always on time, brother. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate you, man. In case you didn't know who this man is, he is the Canadian ambassador for the Shout Out Show for all of Canada. Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Saskatchewan, all the way over to now what's the spot all the way on the far west side? I forgot, but now forgive me, I forgot. I know I should know it, but I've forgotten. It is what it is. But brother, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you, man. Feel free to jump in. You had some good comments yesterday, so I appreciate you. Okay, and next up we have Sister Ika coming all the way from Indonesia. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good news from Sister Ika and her family. They are recovering from the illnesses and they're doing better. So all praise due to Allah for that. Sister Ika, we hope that you and your family are blessed. Get your rest and keep improving. We appreciate that. Do that for the team. All right. Next up. All right, we got Mary Moss, better known as Mama Son, on the show today. She said, howdy, SOS family. We appreciate that. We also want to give a shout out to Sister Eleanor, Miss Eleanor, who is my mom's sidekick. Her niece is not doing well. Her niece was involved in an accident and is currently hospitalized. So we want to make sure we reach out to Sister Eleanor and her family. Arms around you, sis. Hope everything is going well for you and your niece is recovering. Don't forget, your body has rights too. So don't overdo it. Reach out and let's diversify some of the help that you need. So give me a call or give my mom a call and we'll work on it. All right. All right. Next up. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. And of course, we have our consultant producer, Mr. Sultana Whitfield, one of our biggest stars in the building, of course, making sure that everything works on the ones and twos in terms of production. So we appreciate it. So let me get to this idea, brothers and sisters. Let me talk about this idea. Who protects us from you? I'm gonna give you two examples. The first example, I'm at the gym. I'm listening to a podcast called "Be Anti-Racist" with it's hosted by a guy named Ibrahim Kendi. He wrote a book called Be Anti-Racist. And he's talking to a woman who I can't remember her name, but they're talking about the scope of race and how race is handled and zero sum. We talked a little bit about zero sum racism here on the show, how that works out with white supremacy. White supremacy is an active component algorithm for zero sum. That's the only way it works. So it can never really wholly look at the problem without assessing a problem maker. And the problem maker is the person that somehow does not give them what they want. So I'm going to give you an example of what they were talking about. As desegregation went through the South, there's a case now. I can't remember exactly the town, but deal with me. I don't know if it's Mississippi, Alabama, but a law came down, a decree came down that basically one of the pools in one of these southern towns, essentially it was a whites only pool. Black kids could not take part in the pool. However, Black tax dollars went to the pool, Black tax dollars went to the maintenance. You know what I'm talking about. So you're going to pay for this activity over here, but you don't have access to it. So desegregation comes and they have a ruling on the pool. And the ruling on the pool says that that pool has to be desegregated, meaning that Black children should be allowed to swim in that pool. Two things happen. Not only did white people stop swimming in that pool, brothers and sisters, but they drained the water. They drained the water. Now, as a comedian, it's cruel and it's hilarious because it speaks to people's character. I can go on and on and on about that. But the immediacy of it and the message behind it is the thing that makes it not so funny. That you fight for a right, brothers and sisters, you get the right, and people try to cripple your access to it. This is one of the big arguments about voting. People advocate for a free and just and open voting system, as long as it benefits them. You see, the vote for Black folks and Latinos has always been compromised, and particularly Black folks. Let me just stick with Black folks, because we are the canaries in the mine when it comes to civil rights in the United States. You know, we all go get the civil rights and everybody else comes. Let's just call it what it is. Hey, come on, everybody. We can get civil rights. Me too. Yeah, the Black folks got it. Yay. Come on. That's the way it works. Hey, white lady, come on. Hey, Latino, come on. Hey, LGBTQ. Well, the door is open for everybody. But you don't put in that work. Second example. I'm watching the case of Sandra Bland, a woman down in Texas, around Houston, Texas, as a matter of fact, gets pulled over in terms of, because she asked questions. I've seen the tape. She gets snatched out of the car. A number of days later, not even 3 or 4 days later, she winds up dead. And what I caught from this, from Sandra Bland, is that she questioned the law that's supposed to be protecting her. Do you see what I'm saying? She questioned the law that's supposed to be protecting her. Because people, brothers and sisters, have somehow made a point to decipher how law is applied. That you should have so much, that you should have so much, that you should have so much. It reminds me of a screenplay I wrote. It was a tweener. It was called Sub-Alien Teacher, something like that. And the aspect of Sub-Alien Teacher was, on this planet, you had students that were in education. But you could only progress to a certain level of education. You couldn't go any further. Even if you were smarter than the level you were in, you couldn't go any further. And a teacher comes and takes the mantra up to teach kids above the level that they've been pegged in. It's the same thing here in the United States. We don't necessarily believe in coaching up people that we believe are beneath us. You see, the African American existence has been one whereby you spend your whole life listening to people trying to coach you up. They're trying to coach you up, but they don't know what you need. They're not coaches. I don't need a tennis coach when I'm playing football. I don't need a basketball coach when I'm playing baseball. But that's been the application for a lot of people. African Americans, definitely Native Americans, definitely Latinos. That's been the adjective about our folks. That we somehow, despite all our ingenuity, all our intellectualism, all our advances, we somehow require this protection. And the protection is faulty. The protection is housed in words we call laws and amendments and things like that. But we know the laws and amendments don't work because we can look at society. I can look in your neighborhood and see where it didn't work for you. And God forbid I go, you know what? It didn't work in your neighborhood. I don't want it. Keep it there. But that's not America. America is you're going to get this protection whether you want it or not. And while we talk about here in the United States, that's here in the United States. If you ever travel, go overseas, the idea of the American government or the idea of American freedom and justice is a joke. Because American freedom and justice is, of course, meddling in other people's affairs, undermining governments, installing dictators. And anybody who doesn't want our protection is an enemy. As you begin to unravel this, brothers and sisters, think about this. Why keep creating laws that are limited in their reach and limited in their provisions to help anyone? If you want to hear about a poor person who raised themselves up out of poverty, the thing they're going to tell you is the laws didn't help. The laws didn't help. In fact, the laws probably inspired them and let them know that these things are not here for you. Can we continue? And this is the thing about who protects us from you. And what summarily drives this conversation I'm having with you right now is because we can't protect ourselves in a health crisis. We cannot protect ourselves in a pandemic. Because you have people who believe that my protection somehow is over yours, meaning my rights as a citizen not to take a vaccine is more important than the fact that you can infect me. And the politicians, damn it, the politicians all deserve to go to jail. Because this is nothing but a play out of the same white supremacist issue that we've been talking about for years. If you remove the people that they oppress, they will kill each other. And that's what you have now. In the middle of a health crisis, you have white thought, white conspiracies, white politicians talking to white people in white rural areas, and white people are dying. Should I feel sad? My religion says, yeah, feel empathy. But you've had every opportunity to get this thing correct. You watch loved ones die. Over 600,000 people died without the benefit of a vaccine. I don't know how. In God's green earth, you can figure out that you are special. Years ago, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Um, Adele Brumfield, Marquette University. Um, Good people. I was trying to explain to her how it was back in the day. Listen to me. When they were trying to uh, eliminate smoking in public areas. Remember that? You try to remember. And now, as a nightclub comedian, I literally would have to wring out my clothes from smoke after work in the evening at the club. Uh, if I were to die and they open my chest up right now and they said, Preacher got cancer in both lungs, I wouldn't be surprised. I got enough secondhand smoke to last me a lifetime. But here's the interesting thing. As the laws began to move, before there were laws about smoking, you had actual club owners realizing, looking through their numbers, that a lot of people like to come to comedy clubs, didn't want to deal with the smoke. And so what they did was they said, if anyone wants to come to a smokeless show, you come to the early show. And if you want to smoke, come to the late show. And I'm saying just that thing about smoking and creating spaces for people to smoke. They did it back then, but you know what? It was a lot simpler because people cared. People cared. And the idea of protection was a lot bigger than the idea of exploitation and the idea of leveraging fear. You may look at this and say, well, what's the point? Where are we? We're at a point now where we have pandemic numbers that are rivaling when we had the real pandemic. And it's coming from bad choices. Bad choices with politicians, bad choices with people who's supposed to have free will and intellect. And it's not free will and intellect. It is arrogance. It is the thing that's been killing us for years. It is this weird white exceptionalism that even if I get you infected, it doesn't matter because I'm an American or I'm white. And much the same as you ever watch Gladiator with Russell Crowe. I like that movie. And here's why I like that movie. Because at the beginning of they have the Romans fighting the Germans. And what you saw, brothers and sisters, was the mass cruelty and toxicity that white Europeans had towards one another. There were no black people. There were no Latinos. This is European force. That's how they handled problems. They killed each other. They massacred one another. We're talking about massive loss of life. The biggest massive loss of life is what? The Black Plague. The Black Plague. And where did that happen? Here in the United States? No, it happened in Europe. It happened with the fact that they couldn't deal with clean water, dysentery. Millions of people, generations of people died. Now, let me throw this out here. They didn't have the technology. They didn't have the CDC and things like that. And literally that plague had to play itself out. So what is the excuse now? CDC, politicians, you're making decisions that are supposed to be our protectors, but I don't feel safe about the decisions you make. Therefore, if you're making decisions that are supposed to protect us, and I don't feel good about it, who protects us from you? Who protects us from you? You're consistently making bad. Let me tell you guys something. He was the spectacle of Donald Trump, and it was the same as Caesar. We have watched people who have been out of their absolute rabbit picking mind, damn near insane, running countries. In history, people who are psychopaths running countries. And what they had to do was continually put out that if you were to do something, you would not be protected, that you would find yourself on the wrong side of an argument. It happened here in the United States. And the killer part is that people were relegated to watching, as they say, watching Rome burn. All you could do as a citizen was watch the Republic burn. And for 4 years, we watched the Republic burn. It was frontline news, it was nightly news, and we became numb to it. We literally became numb to it. All the police brutality stuff, we became numb to it. And I asked the question, who protects us from you? Yes, of course, we got a verdict in the George Floyd case, but what about all the other ones? The Sandra Blands, the Ahmaud Arbery's, the Castillos, all of these brothers and sisters. We really, really didn't get the answers we wanted. We highlight the answers that we like, that we approve of, but the other ones, what about the other policemen that walked away that to me committed crimes? Are we letting them off the hook? Probably so. My mother says, answer to who protects us from you. Those who have the power determines who gets protected, whether power in numbers, military might, economics. It's true. Yeah. Is it beyond us, though, to protect ourselves? Is it beyond us to protect ourselves? You know, one of the linchpins of the second Reconstruction, which took the vote away from freed slaves, one of the things is they made sure that slaves couldn't have firearms. You couldn't have firearms. If you had a firearm, it was against the law. And we have that now. We have that now. It's very hard in the African American community for some reason to get a gun, while you have a whole lobby that says get guns. But case in point, and let me. Why are we so accustomed to just sitting around watching Rome burn? I asked that question a couple times. And I came up with this model. Imagine there's a march on Washington. And everybody's there, 1 million people are there. But only a certain group of people can be close to the steps. And then you have another group of people, and you have another group of people. If you're at the bottom, or at the back of this procession, if you will, or the back of this march, you're not going to hear so well, right? You're not going to hear so well. You're not going to hear the words coming out of the speaker's mouth. You're not going to see the expressions. And that's what it is, brothers and sisters. We're not in a space where we can interpret and build for ourselves. I think one of the most iconic pictures I ever saw as a young man was Malcolm X with a gun looking outside of his window. Now, oddly enough, he was worried more about black folk killing him than white folk killing him. Let's just call it what it is. But even in that space, he has wherewithal and the intelligence to understand that I'm under attack. And maybe the idea for us, as opposed to trying to figure out people's motives, why they're doing the laws, why don't we go to what Malcolm understood while he held that rifle and looked out of the window? Just the pure, unadulterated idea that we are under attack, and we have always been under attack. And the intelligence thing is, you know what? Stop trying to compromise with people who want to attack you. Frame things in economic language, or frame things in voting language or legal language. Frame things in cultural language that give us protections. You know, the good movie I saw a couple years ago, and I'm going to wrap up on this. The whole idea was the president was in the president, I think it was I can't remember the guy's name, actor, but they were in a room and a nuclear attack happens, and the missiles are coming from Russia to here. The missiles are on the way, and he has to figure out whether we're going to fire missiles back to Russia. So there's a worry there. So like a red hundred October type of deal. So it's like, do we pull? Do we fire back, or they're on their way, and they build up the drama. Let me cut to what the guy did. He had a suitcase where he's supposed to put his code in and press it, and everything's done. They bought him another suitcase, and this suitcase opened up, and he just pressed the button. And all of the missiles coming from Russia just fell in the water. He said, we sold them the missiles. He said, they own the missiles. He said, but they don't own the guidance systems. We own the guidance systems. Which meant that the missiles that were being fired, the U.S. had control of those missiles. Even then, shrewd, yes, but it goes to control. Now, I will leave here, but I'm like, how much of this is protection? How much of it is control? See, because when it's not honest protection, it's absolutely control. So think about that. So the next time you see a policeman, is it a good policeman, bad policeman, or you read about voting laws, or you read about, a different type of things, Roe versus Wade and things like that. All these things coming out, brothers and sisters, student loans, Ask the question: who protects us from you? That's my show. I'm Preacher Moss. I want you guys to have a great time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks again. See you tomorrow, inshallah. ShOUT.